Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special breakdown of what has been dubbed the most explosive moment in daytime television history, the day British comedy legend Rowan Atkinson, better known to millions as Mr. Bean, walked off the set of The View mid-interview after a fiery exchange with co-host Joy Behar that left the studio audience gasping and social media ablaze with reactions from every corner of the globe. We are going to dissect every single second of this 15-minute segment that has now racked up over 50 million views on YouTube alone and sparked endless debates about free speech, political correctness, and the clash between old-school British humor and modern American talk show dynamics. To set the stage, Rowan Atkinson was invited to promote his new Netflix special, a heartfelt documentary about the preservation of classic cars, a passion project that has nothing to do with politics or social issues. Yet somehow within 10 minutes the conversation veered into dangerous territory when Joy Behar decided to grill him on his past comments about cancel culture and his defense of free expression in comedy. Atkinson, known for his deadpan delivery and impeccable timing, tried to steer the chat back to vintage automobiles, but Behar pressed on, citing specific jokes from Blackadder and Mr. Bean episodes that she deemed offensive to certain groups. The tension was palpable from the moment Atkinson sat down in that iconic hot seat surrounded by Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes and Alyssa Farah Griffin, each bringing their own energy to the table, but it was Behar who took the lead, asking pointed questions that seemed designed to corner the comedian into either apologizing or doubling down. The audience initially cheered for the guest, a rare treat to have such an international star on the show, but as the exchange heated up you could hear a pin drop in the studio. The producers in the control room were reportedly scrambling, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the drama unfold naturally, because ratings gold was unfolding right before their eyes. Atkinson's facial expressions alone told a story, his eyebrows arching higher with each provocative question, his lips pursing in that signature way that fans know means he is about to deliver a zinger. But this time the zinger never came. Instead he chose silence, at first letting Behar fill the air with her accusations of insensitivity. In an era where comedy is under scrutiny, this moment will be studied in media classes for years to come as a textbook example of how quickly a lighthearted promotional appearance can spiral into a cultural flashpoint. And we are just getting started on unpacking the layers of what really happened behind the scenes, the build-up, the exact words exchanged, and the immediate aftermath that saw Atkinson's team issuing a statement while The View's public relations machine went into overdrive to contain the fallout. Stay with us as we rewind to the very beginning of the interview and analyze every nuance, every pause, and every loaded glance that led to the storm-off scene around the world. This is not just about one argument, it is about the broader implications for entertainment, freedom of speech, and how talk shows navigate controversial waters in 2025. Let us roll the tape from the opening moments when the announcer booms Rowan Atkinson. Everyone in the audience erupts in applause as the man himself strides onto the stage in a sharp navy suit, looking every bit the distinguished gentleman rather than the bumbling character he is famous for portraying. Whoopi Goldberg kicks things off with a warm welcome, complimenting his timeless humor and asking about the inspiration behind the new documentary on classic cars. Atkinson lights up, genuinely passionate about the subject, recounting stories of restoring a 1965 Aston Martin and the joy of hearing that engine purr for the first time in decades. The panel nods along. Sunny Hostin shares her own love for vintage Mustangs and the vibe is relaxed, almost nostalgic, a perfect start to what should have been a 10-minute feel-good segment. But then Joy Behar leans forward with that trademark smirk and says, "But Rowan, before we get too deep into carburetors, let us talk about something that has been bothering me for years. Your portrayal of Mr. Bean has been called ableist by some critics, mocking people with disabilities. Is that really funny in this day and age?" The studio audience lets out a collective "oh" as Atkinson blinks twice, clearly caught off guard, but recovering with his characteristic poise he responds, "Well, Joy, Mr. Bean is not mocking anyone specific, he is an exaggeration of universal human clumsiness. We have all spilled coffee on ourselves or struggled with a deck chair. It is not about disability, it is about the absurdity of life." Behar is not satisfied. She counters with a clip from a 1995 episode where Mr. Bean interacts with a blind man in a park, and according to her it perpetuates harmful stereotypes. Atkinson chuckles softly, explaining the context of physical comedy rooted in silent film traditions like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, but Behar interrupts, citing a tweet from 2021 where Atkinson defended J.K. Rowling's stance on gender issues, saying he fears the rise of a new intolerance. The comedian confirms, "Yes, I did say that because I believe in open debate, not in shutting down voices we disagree with." The temperature in the room rises visibly. Sarah Haynes tries to mediate, asking about Atkinson's favorite car chase scenes in films, but Behar steers it back, demanding to know if he regrets any of his old jokes now that society has evolved. Atkinson pauses, sips his water and says, "Regret? No. Reflection. Yes, comedy evolves, as does everything, but erasing the past is not the answer." That is when the audience splits, some applauding, others murmuring in disagreement. The camera cuts to close-ups of the hosts, Whoopi looking uncomfortable, Sunny nodding thoughtfully, Alyssa staying neutral, and Behar gearing up for round two. This exchange lasts a full 4 minutes, building like a pressure cooker, with each retort sharper than the last, and we can see Atkinson's grip on the armrest tightening ever so slightly, a sign that the calm exterior is masking growing frustration. The producers are whispering in earpieces, debating whether to pivot to a commercial break. break, but the director decides to let it roll, sensing the raw authenticity that daytime TV rarely captures. Behind-the-scenes sources later revealed that Atkinson, his publicist, was texting furiously from the green room urging the team to wrap it up, but the show must go on and go on. It did, straight into the heart of the storm. As the argument intensifies, Joy Behar pulls out her phone, yes, on live television, and reads aloud a petition from 2019 calling for Mr. Bean to be removed from children's television lineups because it supposedly normalizes bullying behavior. Atkinson raises an eyebrow and quips, well, that petition must have been written by someone who never laughed in their life. The audience laughs, breaking the tension momentarily, but Behar is undeterred. She accuses him of hiding behind British politeness while peddling offensive material for decades. Atkinson, now visibly agitated, leans forward and says, Joy, with respect, comedy is meant to push boundaries. If we only tell jokes that offend no one, we end up with no jokes at all. That is the death of humor. Whoopi tries to interject with a joke about her own controversial moments, but Behar waves her off, pressing Atkinson on whether he would write the same sketches today. He replies, honestly, probably not, because tastes change, but that does not make the old ones evil, it makes them products of their time. Sunny Hostin jumps in, asking about the responsibility of global icons like Atkinson to set an example for younger generations, and he agrees wholeheartedly, saying absolutely, which is why I speak out against cancel culture, because it stifles creativity and punishes people for evolving opinions. The back and forth escalates, Behar labeling his views as out of touch with Gen Z values and Atkinson countering that Gen Z is the most censored generation in history thanks to social media mobs. The audience is now fully divided, some cheering for Behar's progressive stance, others shouting support for Atkinson as free speech defense. Alyssa Farah Griffin attempts a balanced take, mentioning how comedy roasts like the ones on Comedy Central thrive on controversy, but Behar dismisses it, saying those are controlled environments, not children. As shows the clock is ticking past the 8-minute mark and the segment was supposed to end at 10. The floor manager is signaling frantically, but the hosts are locked in. Sarah Haynes asks Atkinson about his daughter's reaction to his work, and he softens for a moment, saying she laughs harder than anyone, but then Behar circles back with, but does she laugh at the parts critics call racist, like the Indian restaurant sketch from Mr. Bean? The comedian, his face hardens and he says, Joy, I have been doing this for 40 years. I have made millions laugh across cultures. If a handful find offense, that is regrettable, but I will not apologize for existing. That line draws massive applause but also boos. The split in the room is electric and you can see security shifting near the stage just in case things get out of hand. Atkinson, his team later said he felt ambushed. The invitation specified cars and light banter, not an interrogation on his entire career catalog, but The View is known for its unscripted moments, and this was unscripted to the extreme. The energy is chaotic, raw, and utterly compelling television. The breaking point comes at the 12-minute mark when Joy Behar says point blank, Rowan, your defense of free speech sounds a lot like a license to offend, and in 2025 we do not need more division, we need healing. Atkinson stares at her for a long 5 seconds, the longest pause in the entire interview, then says with icy calm, Joy, I came here to talk about cars, not to be lectured on morality by someone who has built a career on divisive hot takes. The audience gasps. Whoopi Goldberg's mouth drops open. Sunny Hostin covers her face and Sarah Haynes looks like she wants to disappear into the couch. Behar fires back, well, if you cannot handle a tough question, maybe you should stick to children. As shows, Atkinson stands up, slowly unclips his microphone and says, I think we are done here, thank you ladies, and without another word he walks off the set. The camera follows him, striding past the cheering and booing crowd, past the stunned crew and out the side door. The hosts are left scrambling. Whoopi calls for a commercial break 20 seconds early while Behar sits there red-faced, muttering, that is what happens when you cannot take accountability. The control room erupts in chaos, producers yelling into headsets about whether to air the walk-off in full or cut away, but ABC decides to let it run because the moment is too viral to suppress. Within minutes, clips are flooding TikTok, Twitter and Instagram with hashtags like Rowan walks out and Joy vs Bean trending worldwide. Atkinson, his driver, is waiting outside and he climbs into the black SUV without speaking to the paparazzi swarming the exit. His publicist releases a statement an hour later saying Mr. Atkinson was invited under false pretenses to discuss his documentary, not to defend decades-old comedy against modern witch hunts. He regrets the escalation but stands by his principles. Meanwhile, The View's Instagram posts a cryptic message about spirited debates being the heart of the show, but commenters are ruthless, accusing Behar of bullying and the producers of setting up a gotcha moment. Former hosts like Meghan McCain chime in on social media saying, this is why I left the toxic environment, while Rosie O'Donnell defends Behar, calling Atkinson thin-skinned. The divide is immediate and fierce. Late-night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel joke about it on their monologues. Stephen Colbert does a Mr. Bean impression storming off his own set, and even international outlets like BBC News run the clip with analysts debating the transatlantic culture clash in comedy. The fallout is not just digital. Atkinson, his upcoming appearances on other shows are reportedly under review, with some networks nervous about similar ambushes, while his Netflix special sees a surge in pre-orders as fans rally behind him. The incident sparks think pieces in the New York Times about the death of nuance in talk shows and op-eds in The Guardian praising Atkinson as unflinching dignity under fire. Digging deeper into the aftermath, we discover that this was not entirely spontaneous. Sources inside The View reveal that Joy Behar had prepared a dossier of controversial Atkinson moments dating back to the 1980s, including a Blackadder sketch about the First World War that some historians called insensitive to veterans. The research team apparently spent days compiling clips and tweets, knowing it would provoke a reaction. The goal, insiders say, was to create a viral moment to boost sagging ratings in a crowded streaming landscape where daytime TV fights for relevance. The strategy worked too well. The episode drew the highest viewership in 3 years, with over 6 million tuning in live and millions more catching replays online. But at what cost? ABC executives held an emergency meeting the next day discussing whether to issue an apology or double down on the unfiltered debate format. Behar herself went on a mini media tour, appearing on CNN to say she was just asking the questions viewers want answered, while Atkinson gave a rare interview to the Times of London explaining that he felt like a gladiator thrown to the lions for sport. He reiterated his love for America but criticized the gotcha culture that punishes guests for having opinions outside the approved narrative. Celebrity reactions poured in. Johnny Depp sent Atkinson a vintage car magazine with a note saying "Stay revved up, mate," while J.K. Rowling tweeted a simple solidarity emoji. Ricky Gervais posted a video rant calling The View a kangaroo court for comedians, and Dave Chappelle liked several pro-Atkinson memes without commenting. The incident even inspired parody sketches on Saturday Night Live, with Kenan Thompson as a flustered Mr. Bean walking off a mock talk show hosted by a shrill Ego Wotum. The real Rowan retreated to his countryside home in England, focusing on polishing the documentary, which ironically includes a segment on how cars represent freedom, a theme that now feels poignantly meta. Fans organized watch parties for the Netflix premiere, turning it into a statement of support. Sales of Mr. Bean DVDs spiked on Amazon as nostalgia met defiance, and comedy clubs across the UK hung posters saying "Free Speech Night" in honor of the walk-off. Academics weighed in with papers on the semiotics of performative outrage and how Atkinson's silent exit spoke louder than any retort. The cultural ripple effect was immense, proving that in the age of short attention spans, a 15-minute TV argument can dominate the discourse for weeks. Looking ahead, the Rowan Atkinson-Joy Behar clash will be remembered as a watershed moment in entertainment history, much like the Jane Fonda-Ted Danson spat or the David Letterman-Paris Hilton interview. It exposed the fault lines between generations, between continents, and between the urge to entertain and the impulse to moralize. The View announced a new segment called Respectful Roasts, promising tougher questions with clearer boundaries, but skeptics abound, wondering if the damage to their reputation as a welcoming platform for celebrities is permanent. Atkinson, for his part, emerged stronger. His documentary topped Netflix charts in 12 countries, and he announced a stand-up tour titled Uncancelled, with tickets selling out in hours. The tour poster features him behind the wheel of a classic Mini Cooper with the tagline "I am still driving the conversation." The incident sparked broader conversations about comedy's role in society, with panels at South by Southwest and the Edinburgh Fringe dedicated to the topic. Young comedians cited Atkinson as inspiration for resisting hecklers both on stage and off stage, while established stars like Jerry Seinfeld praised his composure in a podcast interview, saying "Walking away is sometimes the funniest punchline of all." In the end, the storm-off did not derail Rowan Atkinson. It relaunched him into a new phase of his career where he is not just the silent clown but a vocal advocate for artistic freedom. Joy Behar faced backlash but also gained a niche following who appreciated her tenacity. Though rumors swirl that ABC is considering rotating hosts to avoid similar PR nightmares, the audience learned that daytime TV is still capable of surprise in an era of scripted reality, and the internet learned that real drama trumps manufactured beef every time. As we close this deep dive, remember the words Atkinson left unsaid in his exit. His stride spoke of dignity, his silence of strength, and the world is still laughing, debating, and most importantly thinking about what comedy can and should be in these polarized times. Thank you for joining us on this exhaustive journey through one of television's most shocking moments. The legacy of Rowan versus Joy will endure long after the clips fade from timelines.